We're here on the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea, right near where 3 vessels were struck by Iran just today. A U.S. official telling me that this was a gross violation of the Memorandum of Understanding by Iran. Now, the vessel sustained damage, I'm told, though there were no casualties. And right now, the U.S. military is weighing how it's going to respond. The officials saying it has a wide variety of potential responses, and it's deciding what to do next. We saw right after the Memorandum of Understanding was signed, shortly thereafter, when a vessel was struck from Singapore by the Iranians, there was retaliation from the U.S. So we'll have to wait and see how the U.S. decides to respond to this latest provocation from Iran.
Fox News alert, CENTCOM confirming that the U.S. military conducted a new series of powerful airstrikes on Iran for attacking commercial shipping. Let's go to Mark Meredith in Turkey. Mark?
Greg, good morning to you. The president is at his hotel for the evening. Is now after midnight, but the latest news we are getting is from U.S. Central Command that they are launching new strikes against Iran, basically in retaliation after Iran had launched 3 different attacks on ships that were transiting the Strait of Hormuz. These were commercial ships as they are trying to get oil, natural gas out of that waterway from the Persian Gulf into the Gulf of Oman. But the strait, of course, has been the center point for so much of what's happened since early February, where President Trump said it was imperative that ships would be allowed to move in and out of that area freely. Iran, of course, had contested that, saying that they were going to be the ones deciding who was going to be able to move through that waterway. Now, we don't know whether or not these strikes are completed or if they are going to be ongoing. Iranian state media was reporting a series of explosions in southern Iran, but we'll be looking to get more details from what Central Command has to say or the president's own comments while he's here in Turkey. And I will mention, Greg, oil prices already jumping on the news of what's happening. Another big development, the U.S. revoking a waiver it had just issued to give Iran 60 days to sell its oil. The White House pulling back that release earlier this evening.
Is the ceasefire done? Is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. We make a deal. And if I make a deal with him, we have a deal. And he goes out, he talks. We make a deal. Everyone's agreed. No nuclear weapon. We make a deal. They go outside, talk to the press. They say, we never even talked about it. There's something wrong with them. They're cuckoo. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Ollie, these are very strong remarks that we've just had from the president. I'm presuming that this will overshadow this meeting that is taking place, a NATO meeting. President Trump signaling that the ceasefire with Iran is over.
Absolutely, Guy. I mean, we were talking just moments before that press conference began about this sort of capacity for Donald Trump to kind of blow up events and sort of do unexpected things. And it came as that line, literally sort of the jaw-dropping here, that basically the United States sees the ceasefire with Iran as effectively over, that it is no longer in effect. Obviously, that's what the president said. You must always take that with a great number of caveats in terms of what it means for American policy. But as far as he's concerned, he says that there's not really any point in continuing to talk with Iran, that they've wasted his his time, that he thinks that the negotiators should keep talking, they can keep talking, but as far as he sees things right now, they're not going to make any forward progress. He referred to the Iranians as scum, liars, cheaters, that the conversations keep going, but the ceasefire, as far as the United States is concerned, is over. And of course, the reason Iran comes up is because it is a point of friction between the President of the United States and the allies at NATO. The other headline, until that line dropped, was that basically the United States and Trump is still very upset with NATO. And you saw Mark Rutte there in that press conference doing the High Wire Act, trying to keep the United States on board, saying that the strikes that the United States did over the last couple of days were completely necessary. But of course, that conversation entirely derailed, totally overshadowed by that line from the President of the United States that effectively he sees the ceasefire between the United States and Iran as over.
Let's just talk about the comments related to Spain and some of the other European allies as well, Ollie. One of the things that a lot of analysts were looking for into this meeting was a commitment by the United States to Article 5, to NATO, that if provoked, there would be a response. If Putin were to push, there would be a response. That didn't sound like it to me. It didn't sound like that commitment was there.
No, absolutely not, Guy. And I think that, you know what, I don't think that that's the ambition anymore from NATO allies. I don't think they expect the President of the United States to give that full solidarity, to say the ironclad sort of Article 5. I think that Trump's sort of policy towards NATO is to keep that kind of forever ambiguous, to kind of play with it around the edges. And it has in some ways been effective if the goal has been to get NATO spending up. You know, but I don't think you're going to get that kind of comment from the United States. But, Guy, just on this issue of Spain, I think it's really interesting. I mean, what Trump is talking about, he's still very upset with Spain's unwillingness to go to that 5%. It's the only NATO member that says he won't spend that. Trump is saying that he's going to cut off visits with Spain. He's going to cut off trade with Spain. This could have huge repercussions for the European Union. The EU would be put in a sort of impossible position if the United States decided to take trade measures specifically against Spain. Of course, the EU manages all of its trade through the bloc. So if the United States were to do that, were to proceed with that, it's a threat we've had in the past from Donald Trump, but he's not effectuated it. If he does, it could blow up the entire trade deal with the European Union, that $1 trillion trade deal. I mean, there is so much to unpack from this press conference and the comments we just had from the President of the United States. Greenland is back in the conversation in a very active way, says it's still a problem. A lot of references to the Nazis and how quickly they overran Denmark, and the United States was there to take care of Greenland. They should never have given it back. And of course, Iran is sort of at the top of the agenda, but a lot to unpack there in the few minutes we heard there from Donald Trump here in Ankara, Turkey.
Well, first of all, we took out additional, you know, they were trying to rebuild their radar, and they had about 60% built. Now they have to start all over again. Look, we're not attacking at the highest level. The highest level are the bridges, which we can knock down. I would say in one day we knocked down every single bridge in Iran. There's not a thing they can do about it. Their electric manufacturing facilities, right? Their electric plants where they make their electricity there. We have to, we'll take them out. I don't want to do that, but if we have to, we'll take them out. They have desalinization plants. We'll take them out if we have to. I hate to do that. That's probably the one I would like not to do least. We attacked Kharg Island last night. We knocked out a piece. I said, don't touch the oil, because maybe we'll take over Kharg Island. You know, we may take over Kharg Island. There's not a thing they can do about it. But I said, don't hit the pipes, just hit everything else. And they hit it. They may hit it again tonight. So, you know, as for your question, normally I'm not that way. But they really deserve it. Because they're saying they want to make a deal, but they don't. You know, they asked for a timeout. They wanted to go to the funeral of Khomeini. And I said, give it to them. And they start shooting missiles. I mean, it was the craziest thing. Now, we did kill him, you know, so I guess you have to look at it that way. But the funeral took place, and they wanted to have a period of time. And they also asked that we not kill them. And we said, we're not going to kill you. They were worried we'd kill them during the funeral. I mean, if you can believe it, what a crazy... Did you ever think I'd be doing this for a living, Marco? Did anybody ever think I'm doing, maybe Pete, but this wasn't supposed to be for me. Pete loved this stuff from day one. But they said to us, please don't kill us during the funeral. I said, I won't. And we didn't do anything. In fact, we made it safe for them, actually. And what happens? They try and knock out two ships, a Saudi and I guess Kuwait, right? Kuwaiti? Oh no, Qatari. In addition, really three.
Three. Yes, sir.
So you had three of them.
The Gulf is witnessing one of its most serious military escalations yet. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, says it has launched a massive joint missile and drone operation targeting key U.S. military facilities in Bahrain and Kuwait. According to the IRGC, the coordinated strike involved both its aerospace force and Navy. Iran says the operation targeted 85 key U.S. military sites, including the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet at Naval Support Activity Bahrain in the Mina Salman area of Manama. Another major target, according to Iran, was the Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait, one of the United States' most important military installations in the Gulf. Iran says the strikes were carried out in retaliation for recent U.S. military attacks on Iranian positions in the country's southern coastal region, including areas around Kesh, Sirik, and Jask. Tehran also accuses Washington of violating the June 2026 Islamabad Memorandum, a ceasefire agreement that had temporarily eased tensions. Iranian state media has described the operation as a coordinated multi-wave assault involving ballistic missiles and drones designed to overwhelm U.S. and allied air defenses. As reports of the attack emerged, air raid sirens sounded in Bahrain and Kuwait. Residents reported explosions, while air defense systems were activated to intercept incoming projectiles. Authorities in Bahrain issued public safety alerts, though the full extent of the attack remains unclear. So far, there is no independent confirmation that all of the reported targets were successfully hit. U.S. Central Command, Bahraini authorities, and Kuwaiti officials have not confirmed Iran's account or released a comprehensive assessment of damage or casualties. Military analysts note that previous rounds of fighting have seen Iran announce large-scale strike results, while U.S. officials reported that many missiles and drones were intercepted by Patriot batteries and ship-based air defense systems. The latest exchange underscores the rapidly deteriorating security situation in the Gulf. Since early 2026, the United States and Iran have traded strikes following tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, attacks on commercial shipping, and repeated military operations targeting each other's strategic assets. With both sides continuing to exchange military action, attention is now focused on official statements from U.S. Central Command and Gulf governments, which are expected to provide a clearer picture of the damage, casualties, and any further response. The situation remains fast-moving, and we will continue to bring you the latest verified developments as they emerge.
And breaking news right now with a war in Iran, the U.S. military saying that it has carried out a new round of strikes after Iran attacked ships in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. President Trump has now left the NATO summit in Turkey, where he declared the ceasefire with Iran over. ABC's Karen Travers, who is traveling with the president, has the latest.
Rob, Judy, President Trump today declared that negotiations with Iran are a waste of time and said he's not even sure he wants to make a deal.
Hours after threatening to continue U.S. strikes against Iran, President Trump saying he doesn't think this will lead to a return to full-scale war.
No, I don't think it's going to start again. I think it's going to go very quickly.
Earlier today, the president signaled the ceasefire deal he signed with Iran just 3 weeks ago is dead. He declared negotiations with Iran, quote, a waste of time.
We can play games, but I'm not sure I want to make a deal. Let's just finish the job.
But when asked how he now plans to get Iran's nuclear material and reach a deal on its nuclear program, the president said,
well, we've already got the nuclear material because it's so far underground, nobody's going to be able to get it except us.
The U.S. and Iran traded strikes this week, the third round of attacks since that ceasefire agreement was signed. The U.S. hitting Iranian air defense and coastal surveillance systems, missile and drone launch sites and port facilities, and 60 Iranian small boats, according to U.S. Central Command. The strikes in response to Iran targeting 3 commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran overnight firing back, launching attacks targeting U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. Ukraine was supposed to be a key focus at this NATO summit, the escalation with Iran overshadowing President Trump's meeting with President Zelensky. But the president indicating more U.S. help is on the way for Ukraine, allowing them to make Patriot air defense systems.
We're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough.
President Trump today again insisted that President Putin wants to end the war in Ukraine. But when pushed on what Putin would concede to make that happen, the president couldn't say. Reporting from Ankara, Turkey, Karen Travers. Robin, Judy, back to you in Chicago.
All right, Karen, with the very latest on that, thank you. And oil prices have been rising since President Trump said the ceasefire with Iran might be over. He told reporters today that, quote, anytime we hit them, it goes up a little bit. There are concerns that any disruption of ships through the Strait of Hormuz could again impact gas prices. They had dropped after the U.S. and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding.
Just when the world thought the fighting was slowing down, the U.S.-Iran conflict has erupted again. And this time, the battlefield isn't just about missiles, it's about cutting off strategic supply routes. One of the biggest targets, a crucial railway bridge that connects Iran with China and Russia. In the early hours of today, the United States reportedly struck the Agh-Teke-Khan railway bridge in Iran's Golestan province using cruise missiles. This isn't just another bridge, it's part of the China-Turkmenistan-Iran rail corridor, a key trade and logistics route that has become increasingly important for both Beijing and Moscow. It is situated on the western outskirts of Akkala in Golestan province on the Inche-Barun-Turkmenistan railway route. The route supports freight traffic as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative and broader Eurasian connectivity efforts. It is served as an important alternative for Iran to move goods, including oil bypasses or sanctions evasion routes, amid maritime disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. The corridor has gained massive strategic value because Russia has been using it to move goods since last November, while Chinese rail traffic reportedly surged after disruptions and blockades affected maritime shipping routes. In other words, this railway has become an alternative economic lifeline linking China, Russia, and Iran. The Agh-Teke-Khan Bridge is a critical node in the multimodal rail networks connecting these countries via Central Asia. Its recent damage highlights its strategic importance in ongoing geopolitical and economic rivalries. The strike appears aimed not only at damaging infrastructure, but also at disrupting the growing economic and logistical cooperation among the three countries. Earlier in the conflict, rail junctions, roads, and bridges along the same network were also hit. However, Iran managed to restore many of these facilities within a remarkably short time, allowing traffic to resume. So the message is clear. This conflict is no longer confined to military bases or missile sites. It is increasingly targeting the infrastructure that keeps trade, logistics, and strategic partnerships alive, raising the stakes far beyond the battlefield.
In a major show of retaliation, Iran unleashed a barrage of missiles and drones targeting U.S. military installations in Bahrain and Kuwait, responding to a fresh wave of American airstrikes deep inside Iranian territory on the second day of renewed hostilities. The strikes mark a significant escalation, bringing key U.S. bases in the Gulf directly into the conflict. Tehran also issued a stark warning, declaring that the attacks were only the beginning. Iranian officials said every American military base across the region could become a target if Washington continues its military campaign, raising fears that the confrontation could rapidly expand into a much wider regional war. According to statements carried by Iranian state broadcaster IRIB and Press TV, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched the operation jointly through its Navy and Aerospace Force, targeting what it described as key American military infrastructure. The announcement underscores the increasingly direct and dangerous nature of the U.S.-Iran confrontation. The IRGC said missiles and drones struck the U.S. bases at Arif Jan and Ali al-Salem in Kuwait, along with Al Jufair and Sheikh Issa in Bahrain. It described the operation as the first phase of retaliatory punitive measures against the United States, accusing Washington of violating previous agreements through its latest attacks on Iran. The group also warned that any further U.S. aggression would trigger expanded strikes on additional American military facilities across the region. Iranian media further reported that the IRGC targeted a total of 85 U.S. military facilities, including Salman Port, the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, and Ali al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait. An IRGC spokesperson also claimed Iranian air defense systems shot down a U.S. MQ-9 drone over Bushehr province. Following the strikes, Bahrain's Ministry of Interior urged residents to seek shelter after warning sirens sounded across the country. The retaliation followed a large-scale U.S. military operation overnight. According to U.S. Central Command, American forces struck more than 80 Iranian targets in response to Iran's alleged attacks on commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM said the operation targeted Iranian air defense systems, command and control centers, coastal radar sites, anti-ship missile batteries, and more than 60 IRGC fast boats operating in and around the strategic waterway, saying the objective was to reduce Iran's ability to threaten international shipping.